It's January, it's time for conference play, and that means teams are finally forced to go on the road, which is where two different top 10 teams picked up their first road win of the season on Tuesday night. But they did so differently than you might imagine.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host today, Isaac Shade, bringing you a bevy of college hoops action from Tuesday night. It is so good to get into the new year and be getting actual good college basketball games again. I want to thank you for making Locked On College Basketball your first watch or listen of the day to get your college basketball content every single day. If you want to talk more college basketball, come join our Discord. It's free. It's easy to do. The link for it's in the show notes on audio and video. We'd love to have you. We're chatting college basketball all day long. Hey, let me set up the rest of the week for you really quick so you know what's upcoming. On tomorrow's show, Leaf Tulane is going to join me. We're each going to draft our top 5 freshmen so far this season, as well as getting you ready for a little bit of Thursday night's action. And then on Friday, Andy Patton and I will be back together. We will recap action both from Wednesday and Thursday night, and then get a weekend preview for you. We got lots of good action, particularly on Saturday. As for today, we're going to go through recapping all of Tuesday night's action. We got a 6-pack for you later, including a wild finish in Iowa. Not from the men's team. What? Yes, absolutely. Mark Mitchell's dad's tweets are coming to light. That's crazy. We'll get to there. We need to look at a couple teams who we don't know what to expect based on some things that have happened lately. That's both FAU and Illinois. We got answers to that. But first, we want to start with 2 top 10 teams who both took to the road on Tuesday night, both of who picked up their first road win of the season. That's Purdue, that's North Carolina. Interestingly, neither team did it in the way you expect. These are both elite offensive teams, but both won these games by holding the home team, their opponent, to the 50s. Yeah, that's right. Purdue goes to Maryland, number 1 team in the nation, heads to the East Coast. Boilermakers knock off the Terps 67-53. We'll get to North Carolina at Pittsburgh in a minute. For Purdue, this is not their first true road game of the season, but you'll recall they lost an early Big Ten game at Northwestern. But in this one, they go to Maryland, where they have not won, by the way, since 2017, and snap the Terps 19-game home winning streak. Now, look, Maryland is not a great team. I recognize that. You recognize that. You know it. In fact, they're one of the biggest disappointments of this college basketball season thus far. I don't mind saying. But it's a true road game. It's a conference game. And at that point, it's not like it's a rivalry and you throw all the record books out the window. But any team, not any team, like DePaul just got raced. Well, that was at home for UConn on Tuesday night. But you know what I'm saying? Like whatever. Again, Purdue hadn't won there since 2017. They go in and they do it. Purdue gets off to an 8-0 start. They hold Maryland to just 19 first half points. The score's 32-19 at that point. And then the Boilermakers essentially cruise in the second half. The lead never got into single digits. And so Purdue just doing the work they need to. How did this happen? Well, Zach Edey did Zach Edey things. 23 points, 12 boards, 7 of 8 from the free throw line, 2 assists and a block. He did have 5 turnovers. I'd like Mr. Edey, the National Player of the Year, to clean that up. What's so helpful, though, and we've been talking a lot about this, is that those 2 freshman guards, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, are now no longer freshmen. They're sophomores. Braden Smith, in particular, has been putting up big-time numbers, triple-double-ish type numbers on a pretty consistent basis. He did so again in this one. 14 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. They need that. Purdue does. Matt Painter's team does. But here's the thing. Braden Smith also had 4 turnovers. So 9 combined between Edey and Smith. And that has to come down. Love to see that. However, Fletcher Lawyer had 0 turnovers, chipped in 9 points of his own, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. Here's the thing for me for Purdue. I'd like to see more bench production out of them. 10 players in all played for Matt Painter, so 5 guys come off the bench, but they total just 7 points together. In particular, nothing from Caleb First or Ethan Morton. And I don't just mean no points. I mean 0 shot attempts from these dudes. Like, what? No. Y'all got to get the ball up. You got to do more of that. I need more scoring from those guys. For Maryland, look, Jameer Young gets 26 points. Great, fine. But only 5 other Terps score, and none of them in double digits. Coach Willard has serious offensive issues right now. Jameer Young's going to get his, but where else is it going to come from? I don't know. They're going to have to get that figured out. For Purdue, I love that they get this win because now it sets up a massive marquee matchup on Friday night when they host Illinois. More on the Illini in a bit, but let's just say they took care of their business as well, setting up Friday night's biggest matchup. All right, so that's one top 10 team who got their first road win of the season. Let's go to the other. That's number 8, North Carolina at Pitt. North Carolina wins this one by 13, 70-57. For the Tar Heels, unlike Purdue, this was their first true road game of the entire season, and their start in this one was the exact opposite of Purdue. As the Boilermakers got out to that quick 8-0 start and then cruised, not so for the Tar Heels. Pittsburgh gets out to a 6-0 start. North Carolina doesn't score until an RJ Davis 3, 6 minutes and 40 seconds into this game. Think about how long a college basketball game is. 40 minutes. That means Carolina didn't score for the over an eighth of this game to start things off. And then they still score 70. That's really impressive, particularly given that Pitt had only given up 80 to 2 opponents this season. Now, obviously, Carolina didn't get there. That's not what I'm saying. But when you look at the fact that they didn't score for the first 6 minutes and 40 seconds, and then they get 70, you'll take that if you're North Carolina. But what is telling for the Tar Heels is just like Purdue, they're able to hold their opponent to 50 points, 57 to be specific, on the road. That's what you need to do, because as you look at North Carolina, they're an elite team, top 10 at Ken Palm, just like Purdue is, but they're able to hold Pitt down. And that's an encouraging thing to see. Here's another encouraging thing to see for the Tar Heels if you're Hubert Davis. RJ Davis had 8 straight games of 20-plus points. That streak ended. Davis had 15. But it means that other Tar Heels were chipping in. Armando Bacot, you might or might not be aware, had not been getting as many double-doubles. Lately, he did in this one, 16 and 10. And in fact, he crossed the 2,000-point mark for his career. He's the 7th North Carolina Tar Heel to do so, albeit it's his 5th year, so some people are going to put an asterisk on it. One of the main things that Carolina has had this year is the influx of transfers has played better than what they got last year. Key of which has been Harrison Ingram, who has scored double digits for the Tar Heels every game this season, up until Tuesday night when he only got 7, missed his first 11 shots, similar to the whole team, missed their first 10 shots before that RJ Davis 3. But here's what's interesting about what Harrison Ingram brings to the table. He affected the game in a multitude of other ways for North Carolina, including 15 rebounds, had multiple assists, 0 turnovers, 2 blocks. That is what Hubert Davis needs. Seth Trimble has been a key contributor off the bench, has made major leaps in his sophomore year, double-digit scoring for him in back-to-back games for the first time in his career. So similar to how Purdue's win sets up a key matchup this weekend against Illinois, same for North Carolina. They head to Clemson on Saturday. Now Clemson has to get by a road game at Miami tonight. We'll get to that in a little bit, but that will be a big one as well. What was also interesting about this game for North Carolina is that it mirrored a game they lost at Pitt last year. In both games, North Carolina had a 9-point lead with 11:45 to go in the game. Last year, they choked that lead away, ended up losing by 2. This year, they grew it out and won that game by 13. Are we seeing a tougher, different Tar Heels team than the one that fell from number 1 to out of the tournament last year? It seems like it, but we're going to find out in big ways because they've got Clemson at Clemson on Saturday and at NC State next Wednesday. So there you go. A couple teams picking up their first road wins. Now, let's pair a few more teams together. A couple, what are they going to look like now? Games that also occurred on Tuesday night for some ranked teams. FAU and Illinois both passed their tests, but one more convincingly so than the other. Which was it? We'll talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked On College Basketball is brought to you by LinkedIn. Hey, at the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make this year that'll take my business to the next level? Well, LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team that you surround yourself with. That's why they've created the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It's not just some other job board. They've got a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, making hiring insanely easy when you have that many quality candidates. We have big plans for our show to grow it in 2024, and we know that if we need to hire the right team member, man, being able to do so can absolutely help do that. This is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering the quality hires versus leading competitors. Thankfully, with LinkedIn Jobs, this process is quick, intuitive, and so easy. So post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, 2 other ranked teams that were in action. Well, lots of other ranked teams were in action on Tuesday night, but 2 in particular that I was curious to see what they would be coming off of some 2 different events that had happened. One is Illinois playing their first Power 6 high major opponent since the Terrence Shannon Jr. suspension. We'll get to that game in just a second. But the other is FAU, who was coming off a loss at Florida Gulf Coast. It's their second, loss of the season. They had that other one earlier in the year. That's just, you can't do that if you're FAU in the AAC, trying to put together a year similar to last year. Those 2 quad 4 losses are unlike anything they had last season in that magical run. I mentioned it on yesterday's show as Andy and I were talking, but right now they're the only team in the nation to have multiple quad 1 wins and quad 2 losses. So FAU, as they moved into AAC play on Tuesday night, was going to need to rebound from that. And they did rebound, but it was not easy. FAU wins over East Carolina 79-64. And so you look at that 15-point margin, you're like, wait, Isaac, you just said that wasn't easy. That's a double-digit win. Yeah, but don't be fooled by that final margin. They needed a comeback to do so. East Carolina led by as many as 8 points in the first half. They led by 1 at halftime. It was a great back and forth affair until it wasn't, when FAU decided to be FAU. Let me give it to you this way. ECU's Ezra Asor hit 2 free throws to cut the FAU lead to 2 with 5 minutes and 2 seconds left. From there, the Owls closed the game on a 14-1 run as they, again, just did what they do. Speaking of do what they do, similar to like we said about Zach Edey earlier, John L. Davis and Elijah Martin each dropped 20 in this one. Big Vlad Golden had a double-double, 11 points, 11 boards, and Dusty May also got 13 points off the bench from Brian Greenlee. This is the kind of thing that FAU needs to be doing. So now this is a good win for the Owls to start off AAC play, get that monkey off their back. Now it's time to go to work and do the things that they need to do to set themselves up for the NCAA tournament. They've, Memphis is really the biggest contributor, biggest speed bump, I would say, in the way of their of winning an AAC title in their first year in the conference. And in fact, the only game they're not favored in the rest of the regular season is their game at Memphis. But both Memphis games, at Memphis and at FAU and Boca Raton, are not till later in the season. So they got plenty of time to get ready for that, to prep for that, to get all their ducks in a row. I almost start to wonder, though, if they're kind of in this mode similar to the second year of Florida's national championship, the 06-07 season, when Florida had won that national championship. It's like, all right, let's get back to the postseason. I wonder if FAU feels some of that. They return everybody just like that Florida team did, and it's like, let's just get through the regular season. There's got to be some of that baked into what they're doing, but they got to throw that off. They got to go to work in AAC play and do everything they need to put themselves in best position for better than that 9 seed that they had last year. I don't know what these 2 quad 2 losses are going to mean for their resume, but they don't want to find out if it could get any worse than it already is. All right. The other team we were wondering about was Illinois. What will the Illini, number 9 in the nation right now, look like without Terrence Shannon Jr.? We understood that a little bit over the weekend as they played Fairleigh Dickinson, who had no Purdue magic this time around. So the big question was, in Illinois' first game against high major competition without Terrence Shannon Jr., what are they going to look like? Well, on Tuesday night, Northwestern came to Champaign to help us find out. And before I even tell you the answer, let me remind you that this is where we all learn and are reminded, if you weren't already aware, that this team is not all Terrence Shannon Jr. despite the year that he's having. If you haven't met him yet, let me introduce you to this man named Marcus Damask. Homie drops 32 points on 11 of 15 shooting, 1 of 1 from 3, and 9 of 10 from the free throw line. Yes, we will take that. Also chipped in 4 rebounds, 6 assists, and a block. But it wasn't just Damask. It couldn't have been. Everyone has it. This is a rally circle the wagons moment, and everyone pitch in. 14 points from Quincy Guerrier, who had a double-double, 13 from Coleman Hawkins, and 20 off the bench from Justin Harmon. This is exactly what Coach Underwood needs right now, is just contributions coming from all over the place. In this moment where you're just unsure what's going to happen as the legal process plays out with Terrence Shannon Jr. You just got to keep moving the train down the tracks. Now, Illinois started this game off similar to Purdue. I said Purdue got off to that 8-0 start. Illinois got off to a 7-0 start. They were up double digits over Northwestern 7.5 minutes into the game. They were up 17 at halftime. The lead ballooned to 20 just 2 minutes into the second half. It got up to as many as 33 midway through the second half, and then they just maintained it down the stretch. So what does Illinois look like without Terrence Shannon Jr.? Just fine. Thank you very much. Now, will they all season long? I don't know. But on Tuesday night, for that 40 minutes, boy, did they, against a Northwestern team that had already beaten Purdue, the number 1 team in the nation. So again, this is why we don't just automatically drop teams for losing that personnel. As I said on Tuesday shows, we talked about, what do you do with Illinois now? Where do you rank them? I just kept them where I had them at 10th, because my thought was, until they prove that they're not as good, I'm not going to move them down. We'll just let their play dictate where they go, because that's all we can do. I'm not going to quibble with anybody that moved them down. That's just my philosophy. And you see why. They go out and beat Northwestern by 30, 96-66. Now, that sets up what, again, we talked about it earlier, but the marquee matchup of Friday night when Illinois travels to Purdue for a major clash in what I think right now are the 2 best teams in the Big Ten. So we'll see how that goes. Boy, I can't wait for it. For Northwestern, 20 points for Boo Buie in the loss. They're going to host Michigan State on Sunday, a big opportunity there for the Wildcats to see how they can do moving forward. They've got that Purdue win under their belt, but they got to keep stacking wins if they want to keep that at-large resume in shape. All right. Moving ahead, we've got a 6-pack with a little bit of everything in it today. It's like we went to Golden Corral and just picked out a nice buffet from all over the map. And we're going to start that 6-pack in a place that you would never guess. We'll get to that in just a second. All right, it's a six-pack to wrap up today's show. As I said, we're going a little bit all over the place with this one, starting with a game that was the lead on the homepage on ESPN on Tuesday night, Iowa women's basketball. Listen, I hope, and unless you've had your head under a rock, that you have heard the name Caitlin Clark. Caitlin freaking Clark is an absolute magician, and I love watching this woman play basketball. Homegirl hit a game winner from the logo against Michigan State on Tuesday night. Just your everyday step back from the logo 40-footer. Clean. It had that beautiful sound going through the net. So Iowa was tied with Michigan State. Iowa's number 4 in the nation. Michigan State's not ranked, but they're having their record looks good. This game's tied at 73. Iowa's been playing great at home. Just pure step back three from the logo. Unreal stuff from Caitlin Clark. If you were watching it on TV, or maybe you saw the highlight on Twitter, something like that, the timer on the score bug down below looks like the shot was still in her hand when that hit 0, but you can't look at that. You got to look at the scoreboard. There's still 0.2 of a second left, and just after it's out of her hand, you see the red on the backboard. So that shot actually did get off in time. It was wild to see. Again, she scored 40 points in all. Insane stuff. And again, this game was the lead game on ESPN's homepage on Tuesday night. I don't know if it still is as you're watching this on Wednesday, but really neat to see. Great stuff. Caitlin Clark, you got to see her if you have not. All right. Number 2 in our 6-pack, Syracuse at number 14, Duke on Tuesday night. Syracuse coming off a win over Pitt on the weekend. And Duke is just getting Tyrese Proctor back. This is, I think it's his second game, both of which came off the bench. He did so again on Tuesday night. By the way, before we get into talking Duke, if you haven't seen Syracuse in the post-Jim Boeheim era, this ain't your grandmother's Syracuse team. There is no zone under Coach Red Autry. And so it's a whole different approach for Syracuse now. You just need to make sure you've seen Syracuse so that you understand what they look like in a new era. The Syracuse backcourt is great. They've got Judah Mintz, who returned from mostly strong freshman year, a little bit up and down, and then JJ Starling, who transferred over from Notre Dame. It's one of the best backcourts in the ACC this season. Well, here's the funny thing for me as we switch back over to Duke. If you didn't see it, on Sunday, on New Year's Eve, Mark Mitchell from Duke, his dad tweeted this out, quote, "We as a family do not support what we're seeing from Mark at Duke. How do you show up at a university and lose your identity? Both Mark and Duke need to work it out. Disturbing," end quote. Huh? Homie's dad sent that. It's not a joke. It's not made up. It's not a fake account. That is from Mark Mitchell's dad on New Year's Eve. How'd you like to just be sitting around scrolling Twitter and your dad's calling you and your university out? Hey, Coach Shire, can we talk? I saw what my dad said. Sorry. Like what on earth? Whatever. Apparently, Mark Mitchell's out here reading his dad's tweets, and he needs to be tweeting it all the time because Mark Mitchell goes out and puts together a first half. 18 points, 6 of 8 from the field, 6 of 7 from the free throw line, 5 boards, and a block. Finishes with 21. Didn't have as prolific a second half, but didn't need to because he did all that work in the first half for Duke. Syracuse was keeping it very close. The story in this game, outside of the tweets and how Mark Mitchell responded, seriously, Coach Shire's probably now going to pay Mark Mitchell's dad to be tweeting about these games. The Duke three-point shooting, and what a difference it was, like true tale of two halves kind of stuff here. In the first half, Duke goes 0 of 9 from 3. 0 of 9. In the second half, the exact opposite. They took 8, they made 8. And finished 8 of 17 from 3. So yes, Duke missed all 9 threes in the first half. They made all 8 threes in the second half. You don't see that every day. Anyway, this was a good and tight game throughout the first half, in the first 6 or so minutes of the second half. And then Duke just went on a tear. and just showed off their superior basketball capability to Syracuse. After that, at that point, when Duke took it out, Syracuse was within 2, and then Duke outscores them 37-19 the rest of the way. And it was just like, all right, I'm switching games, right? Like that's just kind of where we got to. Again, Tyrese Proctor comes off the bench again, but he played 27 minutes. It's great to have him back in the lineup doing things. He dropped 14 points, had 4 assists. Great to see it. Some foul trouble for Kyle Filipowski in the first half. That's part of why Mitchell did so much. If you haven't been paying attention, Jared McCain is the freshman to be watching right now for Duke. 18 points in this one. Jeremy Roach had 17. You might just hear Jared McCain's name come up when Leaf and I do our freshman draft on tomorrow's show. Number 3 in our 6-pack, New Mexico at number 17, Colorado State, a key Mountain West matchup on Tuesday night. I know this is one that I was really excited about. I know from talking to folks in our Discord on Tuesday during the day, a lot of people were excited about this one. For me, this was about Colorado State proving their legitimacy. Now, New Mexico is a great and solid team themselves this year, but Colorado State has to win this game at home to be the level of, like, if they want to seed in the 4, 5, 6 range, they got to win games like this. And when they did, 76-68 in the Mountain West opener. And I hope you stayed up to watch it, because if you haven't seen, similar to what we said about, who were we talking about that I said, if you haven't seen, Syracuse. If you haven't seen the new Syracuse, you need to see it. The same is true of Isaiah Stevens, one of the best guards in the country. He plays at Colorado State. Man, just again, need to. 18 points, 2 boards, 8 assists, just 3 turnovers, 5 of 10 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3, and a perfect 7 of 7 from the free throw line. But it's Patrick Cartier that leads the way for Colorado State in scoring in this one. 21 points on a wildly efficient 8 of 12 from the field. Now, as for the Lobos, look, tough fight on the road. You love to see it, but just not enough, and ultimately drop what's just their second game of the season. That's what you are supposed to do in conference play, is lose tough road games. Now, the conference champs are made by winning on the road. They just couldn't do it. Good win for Colorado State at home. If you didn't see it, ESPN put out their newest bracketology on Tuesday, as did Fox, by the way. But as for ESPN's, they had five Mountain West teams in, including both of these. New Mexico is right now last 4 in, and Colorado State right now is a 5 seed. So again, this is a big win to kind of maintain that level as you're looking to get like a 3, 4, 5, 6 seed. Number 4 on our 4 corners, in our 6-pack, Wake Forest at Boston College. Now, this isn't a massive game, but here's why I bring it up. Wake Forest is playing well. They need to continue to prove it on the road, and they did with an 84-78 win. Right now, Wake Forest and North Carolina are the only 2 ACC teams that are 2-0. Mostly, though, that's because a lot of teams have only played 1 game. But I want to talk about Wake Forest because I want to get to Hunter Salas, who drops 21 in this one. And for Wake Forest, this is the 3rd straight year, and we talked about it all offseason. Andy outlined it for you for the first time, but Wake's transfer guards that Coach Forbes keeps bringing in, like 3 years ago, Alondis Williams averaged 18.5, 6.5 rebounds, 5.2 assists, was the ACC player of the year. Oh, by the way, the year before at Oklahoma, 6.7 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 1.3 assists. Yeah, things went a lot better at Wake Forest. What about last year? Tyree Appleby transfers over from Florida. 18.8 points, 6.4 assists, 3.5 rebounds, first team all ACC. And the year before at Florida, 10.9 points, respectable, 3.7 assists, and 2.1 rebounds. Everything went up. What about Hunter Salas this year, transferring over from Gonzaga? At Gonzaga, 4.5 points, 2.2 boards, 1.4 assists. Now at Wake Forest, 18.2 points, 3.3 boards, and 2.1 assists. If you're a guard who is transferring, you better be salivating at the mouth. You should be packing your bags right now to move to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where Coach Steve Forbes is going to unlock whatever it is that you do, and you're going to score 18 points a game, because that's what Alondis Williams, Tyree Appleby, and now Hunter Salas have all done. If I'm a guard, I am chomping at the bit to get to Winston-Salem, North Carolina to play for Wake Forest. I'm so excited to see what Hunter Sallis continues to do and what he can do for Wake Forest and who Wake Forest is going to get next year, because you know they're going to do it all over again unless Hunter Sallis just sticks around. Number 5 in our 6-pack, Iowa at number 20, Wisconsin. Iowa women, we talked about, pulled out that squeaker, but the men couldn't do it at Wisconsin. This game was knotted at the half at 32. But the Badgers outscore the Hawkeyes by 11 in the second half for a comfortable double-digit home win. We just mentioned in passing, maybe I did, nope, not on yesterday's show. This was in our Discord. I said, I'm really curious to see if Chucky Hepburn's able to go. He came in with an injury that he had suffered in the Badgers' last game. He did start, only had 4 points, but his teammates picked him up. All the other 4 starters had double digits, led by Tyler Walls, 19 points, 11 of which came at the free throw line. Dub for Stephen Crow, 14 points and a career high 13 boards. AJ Storr, 16 points. Matt Klesmet, 15. You love to see all of that. But what I love from Chucky Hepburn is while he only had 4 points, he was able to affect the game in other ways. Steals, fast breaks, other things like that. We'll need to monitor his health going forward. All right, number 6 in our 6-pack, just a couple quick games to have your eyes on tonight, Wednesday night. The premier marquee game tonight is Clemson at Miami, 8 Eastern on ESPN. FanDuel has it Clemson minus 1.5. A lot of people are projecting the Tigers as the best team in the ACC right now. Got to find out. We need to see what happens. Winning on the road, as I said a little bit ago, is key to winning conference championships. We'll see what the Tigers are made of, and then they host North Carolina on Saturday. 2 massive games for the Tigers. Another one, Xavier at Villanova, 8:30 Eastern tonight on FS1. FanDuel has it Villanova minus 8.5. If Villanova wants to move their way, be part of the top end of the Big East, need to beat X at home. For Xavier, a big-time road opportunity. We'll see what happens there. Next one, let's move to the Big Ten. Indiana at Nebraska, 9 Eastern on Big Ten Network. It's the back end of a Big Ten doubleheader. FanDuel has this game, Nebraska, by 4.5 points. Indiana needs to go on the road. We're talking about road warriors. Indiana needs to go to Nebraska and do work. Maybe pick some corn and beat the Huskers around with it and get out of there with a victory. Curious to see what Indiana is able to do, or if Nebraska can hold serve at home. All right, folks, that's it for today's show. Can't wait to be back with you tomorrow with Leaf Tulane. Again, come join our Discord. The link's in the show notes. If you haven't already, vote for us on the Sports Podcast Awards Best Basketball Podcast. Yes, we are up for that. Please subscribe to the show on video and audio, rate and review. 5 stars, talk about why you love it. Smash the like button if you're watching on YouTube. Want to remind you, as always, apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wildcats. And again, until tomorrow, peace.